Vancouver is a major city in Western Canada, located in the Lower Mainland region of British Columbia. As the most populous city in the province, the 2021 Canadian census recorded 662,248 people in the city, up from 631,486 in 2016. The Metro Vancouver area had a population of 2.6 million in 2021, making it the third largest metropolitan area in Canada. Greater Vancouver, along with the Fraser Valley, comprises the Lower Mainland with a regional population of over 3 million. Vancouver has the highest population density in Canada, with over 5,700 inhabitants per square kilometer, 15,000 square mi, and the fourth highest in North America after New York City, San Francisco, and Mexico City. Vancouver is one of the most ethnically and linguistically diverse cities in Canada. 49.3% of its residents are not native English speakers. 47.8% are native speakers of neither English nor French, and 54.5% of residents belong to visible minority groups. It has been consistently ranked one of the most livable cities in Canada and in the world. In terms of housing affordability, Vancouver is also one of the most expensive cities in Canada and in the world. Vancouverism is the city's urban planning design philosophy. Indigenous settlement of Vancouver began more than 10,000 years ago and included the Squamish, Musqueam, and Tsleil-Waututh Board peoples. The beginnings of the modern city, which was originally named Gastown, grew around the site of a makeshift tavern on the western edges of Hastings Mill that was built on July 1, 1867, and owned by proprietor Gassy Jack. The Gastown steam clock marks the original site. Gastown then formally registered as a town site dubbed Granville, Burrard Inlet. The city was renamed Vancouver in 1886 through a deal with the Canadian Pacific Railway. The Canadian Pacific Transcontinental Railway was extended to the city by 1887. The city's large natural seaport on the Pacific Ocean became a vital link in the trade between Asia-Pacific, East Asia, Europe, and Eastern Canada. Vancouver has hosted many international conferences and events, including the 1950 for Commonwealth Games, UN Habitati, Expo 86, APEC Canada 1997, the World Police and Fire Games in 1989 and 2009. Several matches of 2015 FIFA Women's World Cup, including the finals at BC Place in downtown Vancouver, and the 2010 Winter Olympics and Paralympics, which were held in Vancouver and Whistler. A resort, community 125 kilometers, 78 miles north of the city. In 1969, Greenpeace was founded in Vancouver. The city became the permanent home to TED conferences in 2014. As of 2016, the Port of Vancouver is the fourth largest port by tonnage in the Americas, the busiest and largest in Canada, and the most diversified port in North America. While forestry remains its largest industry, Vancouver is well known as an urban center surrounded by nature, making tourism its second largest industry. Major film production studios in Vancouver and nearby Burnaby have turned Greater Vancouver and nearby areas into one of the largest film production centers in North America, earning it the nickname Hollywood North. The city takes its name from George Vancouver, who explored the inner harbor of Burrard Inlet in 1792 and gave various places British names. The family name Vancouver itself originates from the Dutch Van Coevoorden, denoting somebody from the city of Coevoorden, Netherlands. The explorers' ancestors came to England from Coevoorden, which is the origin of the name that eventually became Vancouver. The indigenous Squamish people, who reside in a region that encompasses southwestern British Columbia, including this city, gave the name Kink Emile, which means place of many maple trees. This was originally the name of a village inhabited by said people where a sawmill was established by Edward Stamp as part of the foundations to the British settlement, later becoming part of Vancouver. In K'nqcumin, the downriver dialect of Halkomelem, spoken by the Musqueam, there is no specific term for Vancouver. The Rather, there existed names for specific villages and landscape features that the people knew intimately in the area Vancouver exists in currently, as opposed to larger geographic features. The region where Vancouver is currently located was referred to by the Stala in the upriver Halkomelem dialect as LHQ. Let's, meaning wide at the bottom. End. Speakers of the island dialect of Halkomelem referred to the region of Vancouver as SQWXWamish or SKWamish, referring to the Squamish, or as Pankupe 7, a transliteration of the English word Vancouver. History main article, History of Vancouver for a chronological guide. See Timeline of Vancouver history. Before 1850, archaeological records indicate that Aboriginal people were already living in the Vancouver area from 8,000 to 10,000 years ago. The Squamish, Musqueam, and Tsleil-Waututh peoples of the Coast Salish group had villages in various parts of present-day Vancouver, such as Stanley Park, Falls Creek, Kitsilano, Point Grey, and near the mouth of the Fraser River. Europeans became acquainted with the area of the future Vancouver when José María Narváez of Spain explored the coast of present-day Point Grey and parts of Burrard Inlet in 1791. Although one author contends that Francis Drake may have visited the area in 1579. Draft map of villages and landmarks with their indigenous names, Burrard Inlet and English Bay, by Vancouver archivist J.S. Matthews the Explorer and Northwest Company trader Simon Fraser and his crew. W became the first known Europeans to set foot on the site of the present-day city. In 1808, they traveled from the east down the Fraser River, perhaps as far as Point Grey. Early growth view of Gastown from Carroll and Water Street in 1886. Gastown was a settlement that quickly became a center for trade and commerce on Burrard Inlet. The Fraser Gold Rush of 1858 brought over 25,000 men, mainly from California, to nearby New Westminster, founded February 14, 1859 on the Fraser River, on their way to the Fraser Canyon, bypassing what would become Vancouver. Vancouver is among British Columbia's youngest cities. 45, the first European settlement in what is now Vancouver, was not until 1862 at McCleary's farm on the Fraser River, just east of the ancient village of Musqueam in what is now Marpole. A sawmill was established at Moodyville, now the city of North Vancouver, in 1863, beginning the city's long relationship with logging. It was quickly followed by mills owned by Captain Edward Stamp on the south shore of the inlet. Stamp, who had begun logging in the Port Alberni area, first attempted to run a mill at Brockton Point, but difficult currents and reefs forced the relocation of the operation in 1867 to a point near the foot of Dunleavy Street. This mill, known as the Hastings Mill, became the nucleus around which Vancouver formed. The mill's central role in the city waned after the arrival of the Canadian Pacific Railway (CPR) in the 1880s. It nevertheless remained important to the local economy until it closed in the 1920s. 46. The settlement, which came to be called Gastown, proliferated around the original makeshift tavern established by Gassy Jack in 1867 on the edge of the Hastings Mill property. In 1870, the colonial government surveyed the settlement and laid out a town site, renamed Granville in honor of the then British Secretary of State for the Colonies, Lord Granville. This site, with its natural harbor, was selected in 1880 for 48 as the terminus for the Canadian Pacific Railway, to the disappointment of Port Moody, New Westminster, and Victoria, all of which had vied to be the railhead. A railway was among the inducements for British Columbia to join the Confederation in 1871, but the Pacific Scandal and arguments over the use of Chinese labor delayed construction until the 1880s. The city of Vancouver was incorporated on April 6, 1886, the same year that the first transcontinental train arrived. CPR President William Van Horn arrived in Port Moody to establish the CPR terminus recommended by Henry John Canby and gave the city its name in honor of George Vancouver. The Great Vancouver Fire on June 13, 1886, razed the entire city. The Vancouver Fire Department was established that year and the city quickly rebuilt. 46. Vancouver's population grew from a settlement of 1,000 people in 1881 to over 20,000 by the turn of the century and 100,000 by 1911. Vancouver merchants outfitted prospectors bound for the Klondike Gold Rush in 1898. 42. One of those merchants, Charles Woodward, had opened the first Woodward store at Abbott and Cordova Streets in 1892 and, along with Spencer's and the Hudson's Bay department stores, formed the core of the city's retail sector for decades. The economy of early Vancouver was dominated by large companies such as the CPR, which fueled economic activity and led to the rapid development of the new city. In fact, the CPR was the main real estate owner and housing developer in the city, while some manufacturing did develop, including the establishment of the British Columbia Sugar Refinery by Benjamin Tingley Rogers in 1890. Natural resources became the basis for Vancouver's economy. The resource sector was initially based on logging and later on exports moving through the seaport, where commercial traffic constituted the largest economic sector in Vancouver by the 1930s. The 20th Century Plaincliffs, RCMP officers attack relief camp workers union protesters in 1938. Several protests over unemployment occurred in the city during the Great Depression. Downtown celebrations at the end of World War I dominance of the economy by big business was accompanied by an often militant labor movement. The first major sympathy strike was in 1903 when railway employees struck against the CPR for union recognition. Labor leader Frank Rogers was killed by CPR police while picketing at the docks, becoming the movement's first martyr in British Columbia. 39 to 41, the rise of industrial tensions throughout the province led to Canada's first general strike. In 1918, at the Cumberland Coal Mines on Vancouver Island, 71-7 for following a lull in the 1920s. The strike wave peaked in 1935 when unemployed men flooded the city to protest conditions in the relief camps run by the military in remote areas throughout the province. After 2 tense months of daily and disruptive protesting, the relief camp strikers decided to take their grievances to the federal government and embarked on the On to Ottawa trek. But their protest was put down by force. The workers were arrested near Mission and interned in work camps for the duration of the Depression. Other social internment or deportation of all Japanese Canadians living in the city and the province. After the war, these Japanese Canadian men and women were not allowed to return to cities like Vancouver, causing areas, like the aforementioned Japantown, to cease to be ethnically Japanese areas as the communities never revived. Amalgamation with Point Grey and South Vancouver gave the city its final boundaries not long before it became the third largest metropolis in the country. As of January 1, 1929, the population of the enlarged Vancouver was 228,193. Located on the Burrard Peninsula, Vancouver lies between Burrard Inlet to the north and the Fraser River to the south. The Strait of Georgia, to the west, is shielded from the Pacific Ocean by Vancouver Island. The city has an area of 115.18 square kilometers, 40.47 square miles, including both flat and hilly ground, and is in the Pacific Time Zone UTC-8 and the Pacific Maritime Ecozone. Until the city's naming in 1885, Vancouver referred to Vancouver Island, and it remains a common misconception that the city is located on the island. The island and the city are both named after Royal Navy Captain George Vancouver, as is the city of Vancouver, Washington, in the United States. Vancouver has one of the largest urban parks in North America, Stanley Park, which covers 400.9 hectares, 1,001 acres. 68, the North Shore Mountains dominate the cityscape, and on a clear day, scenic vistas include the snow-capped volcano, Mount Baker in the state of Washington to the southeast, Vancouver Island across the Strait of Georgia to the west and southwest, and Bowen Island to the northwest. Ecology vegetation in the Vancouver area was originally temperate rainforest, consisting of conifers with scattered pockets of maple and alder and large areas of swampland, even in upland areas, due to poor drainage. The area is thought to have had the largest trees of these species on the British Columbia coast. Only in Elliott Bay, Seattle, did the size of trees rival those of Burrard Inlet and English Bay. The largest trees in Vancouver's old-growth forest were in the Gastown area, where the first logging occurred, and on the southern slopes of Falls Creek and English Bay, especially around Jericho Beach. The forest in Stanley Park was logged between the 1860s and 1880s, and evidence of old-fashioned logging techniques, such as springboard notches, can still be seen there. Many plants and trees growing throughout Vancouver and the Lower Mainland were imported from other parts of the continent and points across the Pacific. Examples include the monkey puzzle tree, the Japanese maple, and various flowering exotics, such as magnolias, azaleas, and rhododendrons. Some species imported from harsher climates in eastern Canada or Europe have grown to immense sizes. The native Douglas maple can also attain a tremendous size. Many of the city's streets are lined with flowering varieties of Japanese cherry trees donated from the 1930s onward by the government of Japan. These flower for several weeks in early spring each year, an occasion celebrated by the Vancouver Cherry Blossom Festival. Other streets are lined with flowering chestnut, horse chestnut, and other decorative shade trees. Climate Main article, Climate of Vancouver-Vancouver Chart Average Max and Min. Temperatures in Imperial Conversion Vancouvre's climate, one of the mildest and most temperate climates in Canada, is classified as oceanic CFB, bordering on a warm summer Mediterranean CSB. While the city has the coolest summer average high of all major Canadian metropolitan areas, winters in Greater Vancouver are the fourth mildest of Canadian cities, after nearby Victoria, Nanaimo, and Duncan, all on Vancouver Island. Vancouver is one of the wettest Canadian cities. However, precipitation varies throughout the metropolitan area. The daily maximum averages 20 to 72 degrees Fahrenheit in July and August, with highs rarely reaching 30 C86F, 77. The summer months are typically dry, with only 1 in 5 days receiving precipitation during July and August. In contrast, most days from November through March record some precipitation. The highest temperature ever recorded at the airport was 30 for C 93.9 degrees Fahrenheit, set on July 30th, 2009. And the highest temperature ever recorded within the city of Vancouver was 35.0 C 95.0 degrees Fahrenheit, occurring first on July 31st, 1965, 80 again on August 8th, 1981, and also on May 29th, 1983. The coldest temperature ever recorded in the city was 17.8 C, 0.0 F on January 14th, 1950, and again on December 29th, 1968. On average, snow falls 9 days per year, with 3 days receding 5 centimeters to 0.0 in or more. Average yearly snowfall is 38.1 centimeters, 15.0 in, but typically does not remain on the ground for long. Vancouver's growing season averages 237 days, from March 18th until November 10th. Vancouver's 1981-2010 USDA plant hardiness zone ranges from 8A to 9A depending on elevation and proximity to water. As of 2021, Vancouver is the most densely populated city in Canada. Urban planning in Vancouver is characterized by high-rise residential and mixed-use development in urban centers as an alternative to sprawl. 103. As part of the larger Metro Vancouver region, it is influenced by the policy direction of livability as illustrated in Metro Vancouver's regional growth strategy. Vancouver ranked high on the global livability ranking and stood at number 1 on the list for several years until 2011. In recent years, it has dropped, ranking as low as 16 in 2021. As of 2022, Vancouver was ranked as having the 5th highest quality of living of any city on Earth. According to Forbes, Vancouver had the 4th most expensive real estate market in the world in 2019. Vancouver has also been ranked among Canada's most expensive cities to live in. Sales in February 2016 were 56.3% higher than the 10-year average for the month. Forbes also ranked Vancouver as the 10th cleanest city in the world in 2007. Vancouver's characteristic approach to urban planning originated in the late 1950s, when city planners began to encourage the building of high-rise residential towers in Vancouver's West End, subject to strict requirements for setbacks and open space to protect sight lines and preserve green space. The success of these dense but livable neighborhoods led to the redevelopment of urban industrial sites, such as North Falls Creek and Cole Harbor, beginning in the mid-1980s. The result is a compact urban core that has gained international recognition for its high amenity and livable development. In 2006, the city launched a planning initiative entitled Eco-Density, with the stated goal of exploring ways in which density, design, and land use can contribute to environmental sustainability, affordability, and livability. The Vancouver Art Gallery is housed downtown in the neoclassical former courthouse built in 1906. The courthouse building was designed by Francis Rattenbury, who also designed the British Columbia Parliament buildings and the Empress Hotel in Victoria, and the lavishly decorated Second Hotel Vancouver, 114. The 556-room Hotel Vancouver, opened in 1939, and the third by that name, is across the street with its copper roof. The Gothic-style Christ Church Cathedral, across from the hotel, opened in 1894 and was declared a heritage building in 1976. There are several modern buildings in the downtown area, including the Harbor Center, the Vancouver Law Courts, and surrounding plaza known as Robson Square, designed by Arthur Erickson, and the Vancouver Library Square, designed by Moshe Safdie and architects, reminiscent of the Colosseum in Rome, and the recently completed Woodward's Building redevelopment, designed by Enrique Partners, architects. The original BC Hydro Headquarters building, designed by Ron Tom and Ned Pratt at Nelson and Bourard Streets, is a modernist high-rise, now converted into the Electra condominium. Also notable is the concrete waffle of the McMillan Bloedel building on the northeast corner of the Georgia and Thurlow intersection. Completed in 2008, Living Shangri-La is the tallest building in Vancouver. A prominent addition to the city's landscape is the giant tent-frame Canada Place designed by Zeidler Roberts Partnership and CMP and Architects. The former Canada Pavilion from the 1986 World Exposition, which includes part of the Convention Center, the Pan Pacific Hotel, and a cruise ship terminal, to modern buildings that define the southern skyline away from the downtown area are City Hall and the Centennial Pavilion of Vancouver General Hospital, both designed by Townley and Matheson in 1936 and 1958, respectively. A collection of Edwardian buildings in the city's old downtown core were, in their day, the tallest commercial buildings in the British Empire. These were, in succession, the Carter Cotton Building, former home of the Province newspaper, the Dominion Building 1907, and the Sun Tower 1911, the former two at Cambie and Hastings Streets, and the latter at Beatty and Pender Streets. The Sun Tower's cupola was finally exceeded as the Empire's tallest commercial building by the elaborate Art Deco Marine Building in the 1920s. 22, 24, 78. The Marine Building is known for its elaborate ceramic tile facings and brass-gilt doors and elevators, which make it a favorite location for movie shoots. Topping the list of tallest buildings in Vancouver is Living Shangri-La, the tallest building in BC at 201 meters, 659 feet, and 62 stories. The second tallest building in Vancouver is the Paradox Hotel Vancouver at 188 meters, 617 feet, followed by the private residences at Hotel Georgia at 156 meters, 512 feet. The fourth tallest is One Wall Center at 150 meters for 190 feet and 48 stories, followed closely by the Shaw Tower at 149 meters for 189 feet. Vancouver source: Statistics Canada. The 2021 Canadian census conducted by Statistics Canada. Vancouver had a population of 662,248, living in 305,336 of its 328,347 total private dwellings, a change of 4.9% from its 2016 population of 631,486, making it the 8th largest among Canadian cities. More specifically, Vancouver is the 4th largest in Western Canada after Calgary, Edmonton, and Winnipeg, with a land area of 115.18 square kilometers, 40.47 square miles. It had a population density of 5,749.7 per square kilometers, 14,891.6 square mi. In 2021, the most densely populated Canadian municipality with more than 5,000 residents. At the Census Metropolitan Area CMA level in the 2021 census, the metropolitan area referred to as Greater Vancouver had a population of 2,642,825, living in 1,043,319 of its 1,104,530 to total private dwellings, a change of 7.3% from its 2016 population of 2,463,431. The third most populous metropolitan area in the country and the most populous in Western Canada. With a land area of 2,878.93 square kilometers, 1,111.56 square miles, it had a population density of 918.0 per square kilometers to 1,377.6 square mi. In 2021. Approximately 75% of the people living in Metro Vancouver live outside Vancouver itself. The larger Lower Mainland Southwest Economic Region, which includes also the Squamish-Lillooet, Fraser Valley, and Sunshine Coast Regional District, has a population of over 3.04 million. The 2021 census reported that immigrants, individuals born outside Canada, comprised 274,365 persons, or 40.2% of the total population of Vancouver. Of the total immigrant population, the top countries of origin were mainland China 63,275 persons, or 23.1%, Philippines 29,930 persons, or 10.9%, Hong Kong 25,480 persons, or 9.3%. India 14,640 persons, or 5.3%. United Kingdom 12,895 persons, or 4.7%. Vietnam 12,120 persons, or 4.4%. Taiwan 9,870 persons, or 3.6%. United States of America 9,790 persons, or 3.6%. Iran 8,775 persons, or 3.2%. And South Korea 6,495 persons, or 2.4%. Ethnicity. Further information. Demographics of Metro Vancouver section. Ethnicity: Chinese Canadians in Greater Vancouver, South Asian Canadians in Greater Vancouver, Chinatown, Vancouver, Japantown, Vancouver, Punjabi Market, Vancouver, and Greektown. Vancouver pan-ethnic breakdown of Vancouver from the 2021 census. Vancouver has been called a city of neighborhoods. Each neighborhood in Vancouver has a distinct character and ethnic mix. People of English, Scottish, and Irish origins were historically the largest ethnic groups in the city, and elements of British society and culture are still visible in some areas, particularly South Granville and Kerrisdale. Germans are the next largest European ethnic group in Vancouver and were a leading force in the city's society and economy until the rise of anti-German sentiment with the outbreak of World War I in 1914. Today, Chinese are the largest visible ethnic group in Vancouver, The city has a diverse Chinese-speaking community with speakers of several dialects, notably Cantonese and Mandarin. Neighborhoods with distinct ethnic commercial areas include Chinatown, Punjabi Market, Little Italy, Greektown, and formerly Japantown. Since the 1980s, immigration increased substantially, making the city more ethnically and linguistically diverse. 49% of Vancouver's residents do not speak English as their first language. 8. Over 25% of the city's inhabitants are of Chinese heritage. In the 1980s, an influx of immigrants from Hong Kong in anticipation of the transfer of sovereignty from the United Kingdom to China, combined with an increase in immigrants from mainland China and previous immigrants from Taiwan, established in Vancouver one of the highest concentrations of ethnic Chinese residents in North America. Another significant Asian ethnic group in Vancouver includes South Asians, forming approximately 7% of the city's inhabitants. While a small community had existed in the city since 1897, larger waves of migration began in the 1950s and 1960s, prompting new Punjabi immigrants to establish a little India known as Punjabi Market and preside clarification needed over much of the mass construction of the Vancouver Special across the southeastern quadrant of the city, notably within the Sunset neighborhood prior to the suburbanization of the community to outer suburbs such as Surrey or Delta. Economy of Vancouver with its location on the Pacific Rim and at the western terminus of Canada's transcontinental highway and rail routes. Vancouver is one of the nation's largest industrial centers. 69 Port Metro Vancouver, Canada's largest and most diversified port, does more than $172 billion in trade with over 160 different trading economies annually. Port activities generate $9.7 billion in gross domestic product and $20.3 billion in economic output. Vancouver is also the headquarters of forest product and mining companies. In recent years, Vancouver has become a center for software development, biotechnology, aerospace, video game development, animation studios, and television production and film industry. Vancouver hosts approximately 65 movies and 55 TV series annually and is the third largest film and TV production center in North America, supporting 20,000 jobs. The city's strong focus on lifestyle and health culture also makes it a hub for many lifestyle brands with Lululemon, Arc'teryx, Kit and Ace, Mountain Equipment Co-op, Herschel Supply Co., Aritzia, Reigning Champ, and Nature's Path Foods, all founded and headquartered in Vancouver. Vancouver was also the birthplace of 1-800-GOTJUNK and Western Canada's largest online-only publication, Daily Hive. The Port of Vancouver is the largest port in Canada and the third largest port in the Americas by tonnage. Conversely, since the onset of the global COVID-19 pandemic in 2020, multiple media organizations and economists have continued to warn of a severe long-term economic doom loop impending for Vancouver, similar to the decline noted in San Francisco, California. Vancouver's scenic location makes it a major tourist destination. Over 10.3 million people visited Vancouver in 2017. Annually, tourism contributes approximately $4.8 billion to the Metro Vancouver economy and supports over 70,000 jobs. Many visit to see the city's gardens, Stanley Park, Queen Elizabeth Park, Van Dusen Botanical Garden, and the mountains, ocean, forest, and parklands which surround the city. Each year, over 1 million people pass through Vancouver on cruise ship vacations, often bound for Alaska. Vancouver is the most stressed city in the spectrum of affordability of housing in Canada. In 2012, Vancouver was ranked by Demographia as the second most unaffordable city in the world, rated as even more severely unaffordable in 2012 than in 2011. The city has adopted various strategies to reduce housing costs, including cooperative housing, legalized secondary suites, increased density, and smart growth. As of April 2010, the average to-level home in Vancouver sold for a record high of $987,500, compared with the Canadian average of $365,141. A factor explaining the high property prices may be policies by the Canadian government which permits snow washing, which allows foreigners to buy property in Canada while shielding their identities from tax authorities, making real estate transactions an effective way to conduct money laundering. Since the 1990s, the development of high-rise condominiums in the downtown peninsula has been financed, in part, by an inflow of capital from Hong Kong immigrants due to the former colony's 1997 handover to China. 165 such development has clustered in the Yaletown and Cole Harbour districts and around many of the SkyTrain stations to the east of the downtown. 153. The city's selection to co-host the 2010 Winter Olympics was also a major influence on economic development. Concern was expressed that Vancouver's increasing homelessness problem would be exacerbated by the Olympics because owners of single-room occupancy hotels, which house many of the city's lowest-income residents, converted their properties to attract higher-income residents and tourists. 166. Another significant international event held in Vancouver, the 1986 World Exposition, received over 20 million visitors and added $3.7 billion to the Canadian economy. Some still standing Vancouver landmarks, including the SkyTrain public transit system and Canada Place, were built as part of the exposition. Government Mine article, Government and Politics of Vancouver map of the 22 official neighborhoods of Vancouver. Unlike other British Columbia municipalities, is incorporated under the Vancouver Charter. The legislation, passed in 1953, supersedes the Vancouver Incorporation Act 1921 and grants the city more and different powers than other communities possess under British Columbia's Municipalities Act. The civic government was dominated by the center-right nonpartisan association NPA since World War II, albeit with some significant center-left interludes until 2008. 46. The NPA fractured over the issue of drug policy in 2002, facilitating a landslide victory for the coalition of progressive electors, COPE, on a harm reduction platform. Subsequently, North America's only legal safe injection site at the time, Insight, was open for the significant number of intravenous heroin users in the city. Vancouver is governed by the 11-member Vancouver City Council, a 9-member school board, and a 7-member park board, all of whom serve 4-year terms. Unusually for a city of Vancouver's size, all municipal elections are on an at-large basis. Historically, in all levels of government, the more affluent west side of Vancouver has voted along conservative or liberal lines. In contrast, the city's eastern side has voted along left-wing lines. This was reaffirmed with the results of the 2005 provincial election and the 2006 federal election. Opened in 1936, Vancouver City Hall is home to Vancouver City Council. Though polarized, a political consensus has emerged in Vancouver around several issues. Protection of urban parks, a focus on the development of rapid transit as opposed to a freeway system, a harm reduction approach to illegal drug use, and a general concern about community-based development are examples of policies that have come to have broad support across the political spectrum in Vancouver. In the 2008 municipal election campaign, NPA incumbent Mayor Sam Sullivan was ousted as mayoral candidate by the party in a close vote, which instated Peter Ladner as the new mayoral candidate for the NPA. Gregor Robertson, a former MLA for Vancouver Fairview and head of Happy Planet, was the mayoral candidate for Vision Vancouver, the other main contender. Vision Vancouver candidate Gregor Robertson defeated Ladner by a considerable margin, nearing 20,000 votes. The balance of power was significantly shifted to Vision Vancouver, which held 7 of the 10 spots for councillor. Of the remaining 3, COPE received 2 and the NPA 1. For park commissioner, for seats went to Vision Vancouver, 1 to the Green Party, 1 to COPE, and 1 to NPA. For school trustees, there were for Vision Vancouver seats, 3 COPE seats, and to NPA seats. In the 2018 Vancouver municipal election, independent Kennedy Stewart was elected mayor of Vancouver. Stewart was later defeated as mayor in the 2020 Vancouver municipal election by Ken Sim, the runner-up in the 2018 election. Vancouver's budget consists of a capital and an operating component. In 2023, the operating budget was $1.97 billion, with a 5-year financial plan developed in 2022 that projected the budget would increase to $2.46 billion by 2027. The 2023 capital budget was $580 million, with a 2023 to 2026 capital plan that anticipates $3.5 billion in expenditures in those 4 years. Budget increases are primarily funded through increases in property taxes and community amenity contributions imposed in exchange for increases in allowable density as part of the construction permitting process. Utility and other user fees have also been increased, but represent a small portion of Vancouver's overall budget. Regional governmentarial view of Greater Vancouver from the west, 2018, along with 20 other municipalities, 1 electoral area, and 1 Cree First Nation. Vancouver is a member municipality of Metro Vancouver, the regional government whose seat is in Burnaby. While each member of Metro Vancouver has its own separate local governing body, Metro Vancouver oversees standard services and planning functions within the area, such as providing drinking water, operating sewage and solid waste handling, maintaining regional parks, managing air quality, greenhouse gases, and ecological health, and providing a strategy for regional growth and land use. Provincial and federal representation, the Legislative Assembly of British Columbia. Vancouver is represented by 11 members of the Legislative Assembly MLA letters. As of June 2022, there are 2 seats held by BC United and 9 by the BC New Democratic Party. In the House of Commons of Canada, Vancouver is represented by 6 members of Parliament. In the 2021 federal election, the Liberals retained 3 seats, Vancouver Quadra, Vancouver Centre, and Vancouver South, and gained 1 Vancouver Granville, while the NDP held on to the 2 seats, Vancouver East and Vancouver Kingsway, they held at dissolution. The Conservatives were shut out of the city's ridings. To current cabinet ministers hail from the city, Vancouver South MP Harjit Sayan is Minister of International Development, and Vancouver Quadra MP Joyce Murray is Minister of Fisheries, Oceans, and the Canadian Coast Guard. Policing and crime-mounted officers of the Vancouver Police Department in Stanley Park, Vancouver operates the Vancouver Police Department, with 1,327 sworn members and an operating budget of $316.5 million in 2018. Over 19% of the city's budget was spent on police protection in 2018, and by 2023, that has increased to 20.2%. The Vancouver Police Department's operational divisions include a bicycle squad, a marine squad, and a dog squad. It also has a mounted squad used primarily to patrol Stanley Park and for crowd control. 181. The police work in conjunction with civilian and volunteer-run community police centers. In 2006, the police department established its own counterterrorism unit. In 2005, a new transit police force, the Greater Vancouver Transportation Authority Police Service, now the Metro Vancouver Transit Police, was established with full police powers. Since 1982, when Vancouver's homicide rate peaked at around 9.6 per 100,000 people, with a total of 40 murders, the city's overall crime rate has declined, with a few notable exceptions. One being in 1991, when the city surpassed its homicide record, with 41 being reported, giving the city a slightly lower homicide rate of 8.7 per 100,000 residents than its peak. However, in 2013, Vancouver reached a record low 6 murders, resulting in a homicide rate of 1 per 100,000 residents. As of 2018, Vancouver had the 9th highest crime rate, dropping 5 spots since 2005, among Canada's 35 census metropolitan areas. As with other Canadian cities, the overall crime rate has been falling dramatically. When a series of gang-related incidents in early 2009 escalated into what police dubbed a gang war. Vancouver plays host to special events, such as the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Conference, the Clinton-Yeltsin Summit, and the Symphony of Fire fireworks show that require significant policing. The 1994 Stanley Cup riot overwhelmed police and injured as many as 200 people. 192. A second riot took place following the 2011 Stanley Cup Finals. To reduce the public health risk from discarded hypodermic needles commonly found on downtown and the adjacent downtown East Side streets, the city runs a continuous collection effort, recovering approximately 1,000 needles per day from public spaces. Military Jericho Beach in Vancouver is the location of the headquarters of 39 Canadian Brigade Group of the Canadian Army. Local primary reserve units include the Seaforth Highlanders of Canada and the British Columbia Regiment Duke of Connaught's Own, based at the Seaforth Armory and the Beatty Street Drill Hall, respectively, and the 15th Field Regiment, Royal Canadian Artillery. The Naval Reserve Unit HMCS Discovery is based on Deadman's Island in Stanley Park. RCAF Station Jericho Beach, the first air base in Western Canada, was taken over by the Canadian Army in 1947 when seaplanes were replaced by long-range aircraft. Most of the base facilities were transferred to the city of Vancouver in 1969, and the area was renamed Jericho Park. The Vancouver School Board enrolls more than 110,000 students in its elementary, secondary, and post-secondary institutions, making it the second largest school district in the province. The district administers about 76 elementary schools, 17 elementary annexes, 18 secondary schools, 7 adult education centers, to Vancouver Learning Network schools, which include 18 French immersion schools, a Mandarin bilingual school, and fine arts being arts mini-school, gifted, and Montessori schools. The Conseil Scolaire Francophone de la Colombie-Britannique operates 3 francophone schools in that city, the primary schools École Rose d'Avance and École Anne Hebert, as well as the École Secondaire Jules Verne. More than 46 independent schools of a wide variety are also eligible for partial provincial funding and educate approximately 10% of pupils in the city. There are 5 public universities in the Greater Vancouver area, the largest and most prestigious being the University of British Columbia UBC and Simon Fraser University SFU, with a combined enrollment of more than 90,000 undergraduates, graduates, and professional students in 2008. UBC often ranks among the top 40 best universities in the world and is ranked among the 20 best public universities in Canada. SFU consistently ranks as the top comprehensive university in Canada and is among the 350 best universities in the world. UBC's main campus is located on the tip of Burrard Peninsula, on the Point Grey campus lands just west of the university endowment lands with the city proper adjacent to the east. SFU's main campus is in Burnaby. Both also maintain campuses in downtown Vancouver and the southeastern suburban city of Surrey. The other public universities in the metropolitan area around Vancouver are Capilano University in North Vancouver, Emily Carr University of Art and Design, and Kwantlen Polytechnic University, whose 4 campuses are all outside the city proper. 6 private institutions also operate in the region: Trinity Western University in Langley, UOPX Canada in Burnaby, and University Canada West, and YIT Canada, Fairleigh Dickinson University, Columbia College, and Sprott Shaw College, all in Vancouver. Vancouver Community College and Longara College are publicly funded college-level institutions in Vancouver, as is Douglas College, with 3 campuses outside the city. The British Columbia Institute of Technology in Burnaby provides polytechnic education. These are augmented by private and vocational institutions and other colleges in the surrounding areas of Metro Vancouver that provide career, trade, technical, and university transfer programs. In contrast, The Vancouver Film School and In Focus Film School provide one-year programs in film production, animation, and other entertainment arts. International students and English as a second language ESL students have been significant in the enrollment of these public and private institutions. For the 2008-2009 school year, 53% of Vancouver School Board students spoke a language other than English at home. Arts and Culture reopened in 2005. VIFF Center houses production rooms and offices for the Vancouver International Film Festival. Theater, dance, film, and television theatre companies in Vancouver include the Arts Club Theatre Company on Granville Island and Bard on the Beach. Smaller companies include Touchstone Theatre and Studio 58. The Culture, the Fire Hall Arts Center, United Players, Pacific, and Metro Theaters run continuous theater seasons. Theater Under the Stars produces shows in the summer at Malkin Bowl and Stanley Park. Annual festivals that are held in Vancouver include the Push International Performing Arts Festival in January and the Vancouver Fringe Festival in September. The Vancouver Playhouse Theatre Company operated for 50 years, ending in March 2012. Dance of Vancouver is home to Ballet BC, a ballet company whose principal venue is the Queen Elizabeth Theatre. Ballet BC was founded in 1986 and is British Columbia's only ballet company. The Scotiabank Dance Centre, a converted bank building on the corner of Davie and Granville, functions as a gathering place and performance venue for Vancouver-based dancers and choreographers. Dances for a Small Stage is a semi-annual dance festival. Film Vancouver International Film Festival, which runs for 2 weeks each September, shows over 350 films and is one of North America's most prominent film festivals. The VIFF Center venue, the Vancity Theatre, runs independent non-commercial films throughout the rest of the year, as do the Cinematheque and the Rio Theaters. Films set in Vancouver see also. Category: Films set in Vancouver has become a significant film location, known as Hollywood North, as it has stood in for several U.S. cities. However, it has started to appear as itself in several feature films. Among films set in the city and its surroundings are the 1994 U.S. thriller Intersection, starring Richard Gere and Sharon Stone, the 2007 Canadian ghost thriller They Wait, starring Terry Chen and Jaime King, and the acclaimed Canadian mockumentary Hardcore Logo, and was named the second best Canadian film of the last 15 years in a 2001 poll of 200 industry voters performed by Playback. Genie Award-winning filmmaker Minna Shum has filmed and set several of her internationally released features in Vancouver, including the Sundance Screen Long Life, Happiness and Prosperity 2002. Arts and Culture reopened in 2005. VIFF Center houses production rooms and offices for the Vancouver International Film Festival. Theater, dance, film, and television theatre companies in Vancouver include the Arts Club Theatre Company on Granville Island and Bard on the Beach. Smaller companies include Touchstone Theatre and Studio 58. The Culture, the Fire Hall Arts Center, United Players, Pacific, and Metro Theaters run continuous theater seasons. Theater Under the Stars produces shows in the summer at Malkin Bowl and Stanley Park. Annual festivals that are held in Vancouver include the Push International Performing Arts Festival in January and the Vancouver Fringe Festival in September. The Vancouver Playhouse Theatre Company operated for 50 years, ending in March 2012. Dance of Vancouver is home to Ballet BC, a ballet company whose principal venue is the Queen Elizabeth Theatre. Ballet BC was founded in 1986 and is British Columbia's only ballet company. The Scotiabank Dance Centre, a converted bank building on the corner of Davie and Granville, functions as a gathering place and performance venue for Vancouver-based dancers and choreographers. Dances for a Small Stage is a semi-annual dance festival. Film Vancouver International Film Festival, which runs for 2 weeks each September, shows over 350 films and is one of North America's most prominent film festivals. The VIFF Center venue, the Vancity Theatre, runs independent non-commercial films throughout the rest of the year, as do the Cinematheque and the Rio Theaters. Films set in Vancouver City also. Category: Films set in Vancouver has become a significant film location, known as Hollywood North, as it has stood in for several U.S. cities. However, it has started to appear as itself in several feature films. Genie Award-winning filmmaker Minna Shum has filmed and set several of her internationally released features in Vancouver, including the Sundance Screen Long Life, Happiness and Prosperity 2002. Media in Vancouver Grenville Square Center Building houses the two major daily newspapers of the city, the Vancouver Sun and the Province. Vancouver is a center for film and television production. Nicknamed Hollywood North, a distinction it shares with Toronto, the city has been used as a film-making location for nearly a century, beginning with the Edison Manufacturing Company. In 2021, $3.6 billion was spent on film production in Vancouver. This ranks Vancouver as the largest production hub in Canada and the third largest in North America, behind Los Angeles and New York City. A wide mix of local, national, and international newspapers are distributed in the city. The two major English-language daily newspapers are the Vancouver Sun and the Province. Also, there are 10 national newspapers distributed in the city, including the Globe and Mail, which began publication of a national edition in BC in 1983 and recently expanded to include a 3-page BC news section, and the National Post, which centers on national news. Other local newspapers have included 200 for a local free daily, the Vancouver franchise of the National Free Daily Metro, the twice-a-week Vancouver Courier, and the independent newspaper, the Georgia Straight. 3 Chinese-language daily newspapers, Mingpao, Singtao, and World Journal, cater to the city's large Cantonese and Mandarin-speaking population. Several other local and international papers serve other multicultural groups in the Lower Mainland. 750 Board Street houses Bell Media's West Coast headquarters and the regional offices for the Globe and Mail. Some of the local television stations include CBC, CityTV, CTV, and Global BC. ONNI British Columbia produces daily newscasts in Cantonese, Mandarin, Punjabi, and Korean, and weekly newscasts in Tagalog, as well as programs aimed at other cultural groups. Fairchild Group also has 2 television stations, Fairchild TV and Talent Vision, serving Cantonese and Mandarin-speaking audiences, respectively. Radio stations with news departments include CBC Radio 1, CKNW, and News 1130. The Franco-Colombian community is served by Radio-Canada outlets CBUF-TDT Channel 26 Ichi Radio-Canada-Tel, CBUF-FM 97.7, Premier Chan, and CBU-XFM 90.9 Espace Music. The multilingual South Asian community is served by Spice Radio on 1200 AM, which was established in 2014. Media dominance is a frequently discussed issue in Vancouver as newspapers the Vancouver Sun, the Province, the Vancouver Courier, and other local newspapers, such as the Surrey Now, the Burnaby Now, and the Richmond News, are all owned by Post Media Network. The concentration of media ownership has spurred alternatives, making Vancouver a center for independent online media, including the TIE, the Vancouver Observer, and Now Public, as well as hyperlocal online media like Daily Hive and Vancouver is Awesome, which provide coverage of community events and local arts and culture. Transportation Trentos in Vancouver Cebus crosses Board Inlet between Vancouver and the neighboring city of North Vancouver. Vancouver's streetcar system began on June 28, 1890, and ran from the first Granville Street Bridge to Westminster Avenue, now Main Street, and Kingsway. Less than a year later, the Westminster and Vancouver Tramway Company began operating Canada's first interurban line between the two cities, extended to Chilliwack in 1910. Another line, 1902, the Vancouver and Lulu Island Railway, was leased by the Canadian Pacific Railway to the British Columbia Electric Railway in 1905 and ran from the Granville Street Bridge to Steve Stin via Kerrisdale, which encouraged residential neighborhoods outside the central core to develop. After 1897, the British Columbia Electric Railway, BCER, became the operator of the urban and interurban rail systems until 1958, when its remaining lines were dismantled in favor of trackless electric trolleys and gasoline, or DIESEL buses. BCER later became the core of the newly created, publicly owned BC Hydro, established in 1962. Vancouver currently has the second largest trolleybus fleet in North America, after San Francisco. Off and on-ramps leading to British Columbia Highway 1 in Vancouver. Highway 1 is the only controlled access highway within the city limits. Successive city councils in the 1970s and 1980s prohibited the construction of freeways as part of a long-term plan. As a result, the only major freeway within city limits is Highway 1, which passes through the northeastern corner of the city. While the number of cars in Vancouver proper has been steadily rising with population growth, the rate of car ownership and the average distance driven by daily commuters have fallen since the early 1990s. Vancouver is the only major Canadian city with these trends. Even though the journey time per vehicle has increased by 1/3 and growing traffic mass, there are 7% fewer cars making trips into the downtown core. In 2012, Vancouver had the worst traffic congestion in Canada and the second highest in North America, behind Los Angeles. As of 2013, Vancouver had the worst traffic congestion in North America. Residents have been more inclined to live in areas closer to their interests or use more energy-efficient means of travel, such as mass transit and cycling. This is, in part, the result of a push by city planners for a solution to traffic problems and pro-environment campaigns. Transportation demand management policies have imposed restrictions on drivers, making commuting more difficult and expensive while introducing more benefits for non-drivers. A two-car train follows rail tracks under and bridge. In the background can be seen a domed sports stadium and high-rise buildings. Vancouver's SkyTrain in the Grandview Cut, with downtown Vancouver in the background. The white dome-like structure is the old roof of BC Place Stadium. TransLink is responsible for roads and public transportation within Metro Vancouver in succession to BC Transit, which had taken over the transit functions of BC Hydro. It provides bus service, including the Rapidbus Express service, a foot passenger and bicycle ferry service known as Seabus, an automated rapid transit service called SkyTrain, and West Coast Express commuter rail. Vancouver's SkyTrain system is currently running on 3 lines: the Millennium Line, the Expo Line, and the Canada Line, with a total of 53 stations as of 2017. Only 20 stations are within the City of Vancouver borders, with the remainder in the adjacent suburbs. A number of the city's biggest tourist attractions, such as English Bay, Stanley Park, the Vancouver Aquarium, the Museum of Anthropology, and the Kitsilano neighborhood, are not connected by this rapid transit system. Changes are being made to the regional transportation network as part of TransLink's 10-year transportation plan. The Canada Line, opened on August 17, 2009, connects Vancouver International Airport and the neighboring city of Richmond with the existing SkyTrain system. The Evergreen Extension, which opened on December 2, 2016, links the cities of Coquitlam and Port Moody with the SkyTrain system. As of January 2019, plans to extend the SkyTrain Millennium Line west to UBC as a subway under Broadway have been approved, and there are plans for capacity upgrades and an extension to the Expo Line. Several road projects will be completed within the next few years as part of the provincial government's Gateway program. Other modes of transport add to the diversity of options available in Vancouver. Intercity passenger rail service is operated from Pacific Central Station by Via Rail to points east, Amtrak Cascades to Seattle and Portland, and Rocky Mountaineer Rail Tour routes. Small passenger ferries in Falls Creek provide commuter service to Granville Island, downtown Vancouver, and Kitsilano. Vancouver has a citywide network of bicycle lanes and routes. supporting an active cyclist population year-round. Cycling has become Vancouver's fastest-growing mode of transportation. 252. The bicycle sharing system Mobi was introduced to the city in June 2016. Vancouver is served by Vancouver International Airport, YVR, located on Sea Island in the city of Richmond, immediately south of Vancouver. Vancouver's airport is Canada's second busiest airport and the second largest gateway on the west coast of North America for international passengers. 255 helijet and floatplane companies operate scheduled air service from Vancouver Harbour and YVR South Terminal. TBC ferry terminals also serve the city. One is to the northwest at Horseshoe Bay in West Vancouver, and the other is to the south at Salwasan in Delta.